I said I thought the Big Ten tournament would be better than some Final Fours, and Matt did a little research, and I think, as he said, only 3 times in the last 10 years were there Final Fours with 3 top 10 teams in it, or 4 top 10 teams, and we're going to have that in the Big Ten tournament now that Ohio State and us snuck into the top 10. It's going to be maybe one of the craziest tournaments that I think they've had in the whole country. When you look at the fact we are back in Chicago, I guess the good memory of that is we won it in 99, 2000 there, so fond memories. And when you look at the fact that we've played, I think it's 14 now ranked teams of almost half our teams we played against were ranked. And as I said, 11 of them were ranked in the top 10. We're about as prepared for it as you can be. With Northwestern, we just played them. They've endured so many injuries, but I've played well at times, and I think it's partly the coach, partly the system. And I think with Iowa, a team that started out 0-3 after losses to us, Indiana and Michigan, went 3-7 in the first half, but have been 6-2 since. So they have played awfully well in their last 8 games and won as many as anybody else, it seems like, in the conference. So I think we could be facing one of the hotter teams in the league, and we could be facing a team that we just played. So either way, I guess we're ready to go, and I'll take any questions we have.
Tom, in the past, you've had very difficult schedules, and you said that's something that's helped your program get better for this time of year. It hasn't been this tough before. Do you think that still holds true, or do you think that this is something, from your sense, that could wear you guys down?
Well, I guess like probably all coaches, you worry a little bit that how many times can you go to the well. But I think on the other side of it, it's still going to benefit you that you can sit in a locker room before a game, or you can talk in a huddle that you've played teams like this, you've played teams as good as this, whoever you face. So I still think the positive outweighs the negative. I know for the excitement of the tournament, the positive way outweighs the negative. Do you have trouble getting up game after game after game? I don't think there's any question that's semi-unrealistic. But now we're in a new season, kind of wipe the old ones clean, learn from what you learned from, both in a positive and a negative way, and hopefully, with the week to get prepared, you kind of put that beside you and start moving forward. So I guess in the long run, the short answer would be, I think it still helps us. I really do.
Tom, can you talk about the dynamic of facing a team that's desperate? In other words, it has to win to continue its season, and does that impact these sort of tournaments?
Sure. I think that's why most of the time there's upsets in these kind of tournaments, because people are playing for their NCAA lives, and I hope at the same time we're playing for our NCAA bid life, and that's the way we're going to approach it. But there's definitely, when there's a sense of urgency, that's unparalleled, because everybody's dying to get in the NCAA tournament. I think if it's handled right, that can be a plus. It can also be undue pressure that makes you not play as well sometimes. But I think for the most part, when most people's backs are against the wall, they probably perform their best.
I'm going to ask you your annual Fred Hates conference tournaments question. But really, what the hell does it mean this year? Is the bigger carrot the seed, the momentum, or getting the championship you couldn't get?
I think for us right now, I guess number one would be getting the championship we didn't get. That would be number one. I think number two would be the confidence and playing well. I mean, you can argue that if whoever does win this thing has got to feel like he has as good a chance as anybody of winning the NCAA tournament just in ranked teams alone, unless there's a bunch of upsets early and somebody's not playing those kind of teams to win it. And so I'd say that more than anything really would be the two factors that I would look at personally. It would be prestigious to win this tournament this year with the number of teams in it that are so good. I think that would be good. But I don't argue with you, and I don't even mind you asking, because the conference tournaments, when you're going through 18 games and maybe 20 in the future, they're difficult. I mean, there's no question about it. But as long as it's same nationwide, I'm cool with it. It's when we get difference of 16 or 18 games or things like that I think it becomes a problem.
Coach, just to backtrack a little bit on the awards that came out, I'm wondering, I looked, I don't think anybody on the first team. Bo Ryan won Coach of the Year, ironically, a year that you swept him. And then nobody on the defensive team either. And yet in the toughest schedule in the country. So I guess what I'm asking is, how are you guys where you are without any first team guys, all defensive guys, or Coach of the Year effort?
Unbelievable trainer. Unbelievable. Guy's phenomenal. I look at the, sometimes it's consistency. If Appling would have played like he played in the first half of the Big Ten, if Payne would have played like he did in the second half of the Big Ten, Harris was, I think, the most consistent in that respect. I thought Bo deserved Coach of the Year. If you look at the two teams that were picked real high, that stayed real high, and if you look at the one team that was picked maybe the lowest, so I think he really did deserve that. I was probably most disappointed with the defensive team. One thing, that's the hard thing about when you have a system, because I still say Appling did not play very good against Ohio State. That was his one poor game defensively, but it wasn't all his fault either. The system kind of hurt him, and I can't believe that he or Harris weren't on that team, but they're my defensive heroes, so as long as they're mine, I guess I don't have to worry about anything else. But it is surprising that a team that's been pretty good defensively, that would be my only squawk on the awards, to be honest with you.
Tom, feel like we've talked about Brandon Dawson over and over and over again, and it's only 2 days since the season ended, but now he's going to be at a point, something he hasn't experienced yet, postseason play. Do you notice a difference in him, or do you expect this maybe to be a spark for him?
That's one of the things I plan on talking to him about today. We did not practice yesterday, so that is one of the things I plan on talking to him. I mean, it should be new and exciting and everything for him, and hopefully it will be. It's something he missed out on last year, so I would agree with that, and I'd hope it means something to him. I think it will. So yeah, that'll be, you try to find little nuggets that you can get for each guy, and that would be a big one for him.
Tom, you've talked the past couple of days about the fact that your team didn't have a bad loss this year like even some of your best teams did. What do you attribute that to, and then does that say anything about your chances going into these tournaments?
That's a good question. I don't know what I attribute it to, because I said, I don't think we have the leadership of, some teams I've had, and usually that might be a reason. I think two things is maybe I'm not appreciating that we are a little better than maybe I think at times, or two, that it tells you how much chemistry means, because we do have that. And I think between those two things, we've just kind of ham and egged it, and nobody thinks they're better than they are. I think that's one thing. Cockiness sometimes comes into play on teams. Complacency comes in. We don't always play great, but I don't think it's a complacent, arrogant, cocky way. We don't think we're better than somebody, and maybe that, now that I think about it, might be the best thing that we have going for us as far as that. And does it help you? I don't think it changes anything either way now, because we've been through this for the whole season. We've had 31 games of it. We've played 14 ranked teams. It's just incredible when you look at the whole deal, and we've done it all year, so I don't see it changing now. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus.
Tom, I know you said yesterday you always look back in retrospect at these tournaments and could say, yeah, it helped us, or yeah, it hurt us. But can you look back in your time and really point to any tournaments where you really do think it did either one? I know in 05 you guys lost, didn't like the loss, but maybe it helped you?
I was going to say, I thought '05 was probably the most motivating one. You know, it bothered me, it bothered the players, it bothered the fans, it bothered everybody. And I thought we really took that and tried to use it to our advantage. And, you know, I had some seniors that have been through it. I've had some guys that I think were good enough players and hungry enough guys. And so that really was the year. You know, I can't think of any of the, I guess the one year when we won, what, 17 or 15 conference games in a row after we lost to Wisconsin. Was that 1999? Or, you know, that year it helped us keep momentum, and I thought that was important that year. But I'd say 2005 with an early loss was probably the most helpful the tournament was to me. I thought the year we lost to Wisconsin in the second round when we had the 12-point lead and they beat us from heaven or something, the way it all worked. I thought that, too, was more of a motivating one. It just depends on your team, how tough, how experienced your team is, whether they can use it as a motivator or as a depressant, you know. And I thought, too, that we lost were motivators.
Last year, you guys both made the final. Did you think it hurt you at all? I mean, Ohio State did get to the Final Four, but...
No, I don't think it well, I thought what hurt us is, you know, the Sunday night, Thursday out there and them sitting there a little bit, but that would be that case, you know, whether we won or lost, or even if we would have got beat a day early, I guess maybe it would have been a little easier, although we wouldn't have gone out there any earlier. So I don't know if it hurt us that much. We didn't play very well against them, but I think that's the only way it hurts you, if you're playing Sunday night and then go from there way out to a West Coast game or something.
Tom, in regards to Keith, it looks like he's righted the ship, so to speak. And it looks like part of that was maybe him making a concerted effort to get in the lane and take mid-range jumpers to kind of get himself righted. I just want to know, was that something you and him talked about, or did he figure that out on his own?
No, that's something we talked about a lot, was pushing the ball. He wasn't pushing the ball. And I think his offense was starting to affect his defense. The last game, he was as good as anybody in this league defensively the last game. And, you know, Keith is a very, very, very good defender and doesn't get credit for it, and I don't know why. But he is a very good defender, and I think he was letting his offense dictate his defense. I think he quit pushing the ball as hard. I think now he's pushing the ball more, looking for that pull-up, or looking to get to the hole a little bit more, and it's definitely helped his game. So I don't know if the mid-range is what we talked about as much, even though we do, but we definitely talked about pushing the ball, trying to get into the paint a little bit more, and he's done a much better job of that. He actually, as I said, he did a better job of that at Michigan game on up. You know, in the last two games, it's brought a little more benefit.
Tom, there was a point near the middle of the season where you said Brandon Dawson might be the most important player you had after a little bit of a tough stretch. There have been a little bit of signs that he's coming around the last couple of games. Where do you see his game at?
Well, I think he's one of the most important, because I think we were getting what we could get out of Harris, and we were getting what we could get out of Payne and Nix. And at that time, especially, we were getting what we could get out of Appling. I just thought he had the best ceiling. You know, he had the most he could grow and the best he could. He was the guy that could move up the most. I still think that. I really do. I mean, whether it'll come, I don't know. But he has had, I'd say, a lot better practices where he's got more energy, and you know, he looked like he was getting a little depressed, you know, going through some of that, which I understood completely. But he's had a lot more energy. He's practiced really well. Sometimes he's practiced better than he's played, but that's a start, you know. And I think, you know, we could be in a position right now where it is something new for him, and it is something hopefully exciting for him, and hopefully we can use that to motivate him. But it's not all just him being motivated. I still have not seen him plant and go up on any kind of consistent basis like I know he can. I haven't seen him go after rebounds like I know he can. And that's what he did. That's why I recruited him, and so that's one of the reasons. And so I still think some of that is subconscious and everything, and the only thing we can do on that is keep encouraging them and keep building on it, and sometime or another the confidence light's going to go on, and when it does, I think he could take a monstrous step forward.
Coach, you used that ham and eggs term earlier this year when you talked about how you were playing your rotations and you were very self-critical of not having a better rotation. Now that you have Trice back in the fold and everyone as healthy as they are, do you have a pretty strong feel for your rotation going forward, or is this still going to be a feel-it-out thing in the Big Ten tournament?
I have a better feel for my rotation, but I don't have it like I've always had it for a 10-year span where my assistant and I sit down before the game starts and kind of, chalkboard the first half where we know at 16 minutes this guy's going in, at 14 this guy, at 13 this guy, and try to have some combinations in there. That's the way we did it, kind of like an NBA style where the player knew, both on the bench and the one out there knew what was happening. We're not going to get to that this year because that takes time and everything, and I don't think we have the time to do that. It takes repetitions of doing it the same way, and that's what I mean of. But it hasn't worked so bad the way we've done it. We've won a lot of games, and we've beaten some pretty good people. We've been in a lot of games. It's just a completely different way that's not as comfortable for me. I don't think it's as comfortable for the players because it's nice to know when you're sitting on the bench that 4 minutes in or 5 minutes in, you're going in. I think mentally you can prepare yourself, physically you can prepare yourself. And I think it's nice to know when you're out on the court that, okay, he's going to sub me now. I don't have to save myself. That's the only disappointing part for me, but maybe I'll relook at it because it hasn't worked so bad, and yet I think we can continuously tweak it a little bit. I just don't think there'll be the comfort level of everybody knowing that because of the way it's going. At the other side of the coin is with TV now being even a bigger part, longer commercials, got to make more money, all those things. Fatigue, a lot of times in these tournaments, isn't as big a deal because of the timeouts and the way they are, although sometimes it's even, I guess, more because of the nervousness and the importance and the one-and-done ways. So I guess it could work either way. But I found that during these timeouts, they're always a little longer, and so subbing isn't quite as critical.
Just follow up real quick on that. Isn't another part of that too? I mean, how do you prepare for Michigan State? Teams don't have a blueprint on you. It seems like it's a different player.
If they do, that's a hell of a coach because I don't have my own blueprint right now. I don't think we're an easy prep either. I mean, we are from the standpoint you don't have to worry about zones and presses and all those things, but you do have to worry about different plays and different things and almost different people beating you. Sometimes it's easier if they have two great players. They're going to score a lot of their points. You can game plan to that. One day Nix is getting 25, one day he's getting 5. There's some inconsistency to that, but there's also, it's hard the other way to figure that out. We thought Northwestern would zone us a lot. They manned us 95% of the time. When tournament time comes, preparation, that's what a lot of it has to do with, who do you have the one day, or like if you look at it, if we win the first game, I think we're down to like 14 or 15 hours. It's the only, I haven't figured that out yet, and why the 3 seed. But there is a quickest of turnarounds in that, and it's the late night game. So that makes it even worse because you're actually doing most of your prep time for a player day of the game. The coaches will work all night, but the players, quick film session, go to bed, and they're really doing it day of a game. And I think that's a little more difficult. So all those things are the small things that happen in these kind of tournaments when there's different time frames for each one.
Tom, can you just kind of revisiting senior night with Derek and his mom? What was that experience like for you to see that? And then in general over the past in your career, what have those senior nights been like for you in knowing that maybe that 8-year relationship or however long it was when you started recruiting them is kind of coming to an end, but not at the same time?
I never look at it as coming to the end because I've had such a good relationship with 95% of my guys that leave, and the parents that I don't look at it as an end, but I do look at it as, whenever you hear a kid, give that awful phrase, "I wish I would," "I wish this," "I wish that," you just want to bottle it and capture it and, tell the other guys, make sure you're never to the point where I wish something, lay it on the line, throw it all out there. And, I think as I look back on Derek, I have some wishes. I think, what if we would have redshirted him? Matured him a little more. What would he be like next year in better shape and better this and better that, the Petersons and guys like that went through that and became Soutons, became better players. Some of those guys wouldn't have been pros, wouldn't have been drafted if they would have had 4 years. So, sometimes I think about that. In Derek's case with his mom and everything, his mom's been great. She's been appreciative of everything. She's been supportive of everything. It's fun to see her get to sit and glow because there's positive things being said instead of some of the negative things that he created. But I took some joy in that. I took some joy in watching her clap and smile and cry and all the things that you do because, like everybody else, some grow up a little younger, some grow up in college. Some of us still haven't grown up, and I'm in that phase sometimes. So it was good. It was good, but it was what it was. The only thing I tried to say at the end is it was almost like, and I probably caused some of that, but it was almost like we had some villain in here. We didn't have a villain in here. We had somebody get caught doing something publicly that a lot of people don't get caught because it's done privately or the problems are private, and that's all over the country. It's not at Michigan State. And so it made it a little tougher in some ways. But in general, when I look at, the guy's going to graduate in 4 years. I got a lot of guys that are better students than him that didn't graduate in 4 years. There were other pluses along the way. And not everybody has a weight problem like a lot of people do. And, that's not an easy thing to battle either, especially when you're 18 to 22. And so there were a lot more positives than negatives.
Tom, when Maryland and Rutgers come into this, maybe two more, and fewer coaches like yourself who have kind of been raised in the old grind through the regular season are around, is there a day when the Big Ten tournament is the championship?
Wow, that's a good question because if the conference keeps getting better, I guess the Big East would be the closest thing that I remember. The ACC, I don't remember it when it was really good top to bottom, if it even been that way. It's been so long. It's been Carolina and Duke, although Maryland was good. Wake Forest had its years. But the Big East had, some of those years where that tournament might have been as big, and maybe that's why it got to, this could be the start of changing the philosophy of the Big Ten. It's always been a regular season conference champ. The Bob and Jeans and Judds and Clems and, those guys that made the regular season for 20 years, 30 years, such a grind, such a important part. If this tournament went, to protocol when you got a bunch of ranked teams left in the last 2 days, would it start taking on what the Big East had in New York City? And maybe we would start looking at this thing a little different. Part of me says that would be good for TV and it would be good for the fans, but I still don't see how you can judge something in 3 days over what you can judge in 2.5 months. I'll never figure that out. It's a lot more grinding, a little more pressure on in this, but a lot more grinding to be able to do something over a 2.5 month period of time. And Bobby Knight was, when I got into this league, he was adamant about that, and I still agree with him. I really do. I still think that even though this is going to be probably historic, it will be for the Big Ten as far as the number of ranked teams and top teams. And I sit there, I look at the brackets, and I can't even figure out who's going to be playing the second day, and much less in the last 2 days. So it's going to be great in that respect, but it's also going to be it's going to be a long time before I'm ready to say it's you become a man because of what you do over 2.5. But we are in a quick fix generation. I'm like Fred. He's got to get his slapping in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, we are into satisfy what today because we can tweet it. So maybe that's going to really change it. I don't know.